Welcome back. In this lesson, I'm going to give you some final notes about how you can use politeness levels to better—
Billy!
Oh, hey KitKat. Are you here to watch me teach the last lesson?
Actually, I need some more cash. How about $300?
Wait, KitKat, no. What's going on? Why do you need so much money?
It's not for me. It's for your loan.
What loan?
The loan that I gave you. The payments are $300 a month.
That was a loan?
Of course. But don't worry, Billy. I'm sure you'll be able to pay it back in no time, using all the money you'll make from this course.
This was a free course. So, what's the loan rate?
That's the best part. Just 19%. It's practically a steal.
A steal is right. What's gonna happen to all this new equipment and everything?
You're not gonna lose the studio. Everyone has a loan nowadays.
You're right, and you're gonna help me pay it off. Don't go anywhere.
Good luck. Fighting.
I knew it. Anyway, in this lesson, we're going to summarize some of what we've learned, as well as introduce some more information about politeness levels. To summarize some of the speech levels that we've learned, formal speech shows extra respect toward the listener. It has a strong, respectful feel. The yo form shows respect toward the listener and has a soft, polite feel. Casual speech does not show extra respect toward the listener and has a friendly feel. Honorific speech shows extra respect toward the person. For example, a subject of a verb being talked about by elevating them. Humble speech also shows extra respect toward the person. For example, an object of a verb being talked about by lowering the speaker. And plain form is used in writing or in speech when not directed at anyone in particular. But there's another thing about politeness levels that we haven't really discussed, and that is what's known as 구어체 and 문어체. And these are the differences between spoken Korean and written Korean. Well, why is that important? Because 구어체, spoken style, and 문어체, literary style, are two categories of Korean, and being able to distinguish them is essential in some cases. 구어체 refers to any sort of Korean used when speaking. This also includes any speech that would show any respect or lack of toward the listener. So formal speech, the yo form, and casual speech. 문어체, however, also known as 쓰기체, refers to any sort of Korean that is only used when writing. And this specifically includes the plain form, although plain form can also be used when speaking, as well as a few more details that are unique to this style. So it's actually a different style of writing, and typically tests will require all answers to be written only using 문어체. So in order to take a Korean test, you'll actually have to learn some special rules for using 문어체, and that's what we're going to talk about in the next several slides. First of all, when you're using 문어체, the first thing you need to keep in mind is that you're going to make statements using the plain form. So this conjugates as usual. For example, 하다 would become 한다, 먹다 becomes 먹는다, and 춥다 becomes 춥다. For questions, however, you'll want to use a different ending, which is the 가 ending. This will be 는가 after an action verb stem, or 은가 after a descriptive verb stem ending with a consonant, or a nian followed by 가 for descriptive verb stems ending with a vowel. Note, if the verb stem ends with a lir, remove it first, or if it ends with a piup, remove it and attach u first. For example, 먹다 becomes 먹는가, 멀다 becomes 먼가, and 좋다 becomes 좋은가. For making suggestions, such as saying let's, use the 자 ending. For example, 하다 becomes 하자, and 먹다 becomes 먹자. For commands, you would use the 으라 ending. So 하다 would become 하라, 먹다 becomes 먹으라, and 팔다 becomes 팔라. Next, only use 나 to say I or me instead of 저. And use 우리 to mean we or us instead of 저희. You'll also want to avoid any sort of casual or informal words, particles, and grammar. So instead of using ante, you'll use 에게 or 게. Instead of using 이랑, you'll use 와 or 과. Instead of the adverb 진짜, you can use 아주 or others. Instead of the grammar form 으니까, use 때문에, the 서 ending, or 음으로, for example. Instead of saying 말고, you can use the subject marker with 아니라. Instead of the 가지고 grammar form, use the 서 ending. And instead of 태요 or other quoting forms, use the full quoting form. For example, 타고 한다. You'll also want to avoid shortening any word, particle, or grammar, so simply use the full form. For example, instead of N, use 애는. Instead of using 이다 after a consonant or 다 after a vowel, use only 이다. Instead of 거, use 것. For example, instead of 할 거예요, use 할 것이다. Instead of 뭐, meaning what, use 무엇. And again, do not use formal speech, 요 form, or casual speech, as these are for showing an amount of respect or lack of toward the listener or reader. Instead, write plainly. Also, avoid any endings that are used to emphasize the speaker's opinions or feelings. The point is to write plainly, and not by using emphasis like this. So instead of using the endings 네요, 지 or 조, 군요, 더라고요, 거든요, etc., just use the plain form. Next, let's talk about something that may be less common, but could still be useful to know, and that is 야자타임. Typically, when you're speaking to someone who's older, it's important to be polite. Now, what 야자타임 is a short, set amount of time when a group of people of different ages all agree to speak casually to each other, without showing any extra respect. But once that time has ended, everyone will return to speaking normally again. In addition, there may sometimes be additional rules set for 야자타임, such as requiring the older people to actually speak politely toward the younger people. Now, this is not the norm and should not be expected in a regular conversation, but it may occur among some groups of people while sharing drinks together in a light atmosphere. So again, don't expect this, but if you see it, know how to recognize what it is. I also want to cover a couple more polite titles that you might see, and those are 군 and 양. First, here's how to use 군. This can be used by someone older to refer to a younger male, and it's used after a person's first name or after their full name. For example, someone could call 철수 as 철수 군. Or for females, 양 can be used by someone older to refer to a younger female. This will also be used after a person's first name or full name. For example, 영희 양. Note that these are polite, but are much less commonly used. And there's one more thing we haven't talked about for using politeness levels online, and this is related to using the word 님 when you want to sound polite. Typically, when you're online, it's polite to refer to someone else, such as in a community or a chat room, by using 님. And the way to do that is you attach 님 after another person's username. Again, another person and not your own. Note that it's important to follow the rules of any online community. Some groups may just ask that its members use casual speech, in which case you wouldn't do this. So always check the community rules before participating. So before we go, try to solve this quick quiz on your own. You can pause the video here and resume it when you're ready for the answers. Here are the answers. 구어체 refers to any sort of Korean that is used when speaking and includes any speech that shows respect or lack of respect toward the listener. The next one, 무노체 refers to any sort of Korean that is used when writing. And for the true or false question, this is false. When talking about another person online, always attach 님 to their username, no matter what level of speech you're using. Since 님 is polite, if you're not using polite speech, you wouldn't use it. And that's it! Using everything you've learned in this course, you should be better prepared now to be able to deal with almost any situation that might come up while using politeness levels. I had a lot of fun making this course all about politeness levels, and I hope that you enjoyed it too. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in another lesson. 그럼 다음에 또 봐! All right, let's get to work. I wonder if Talk to Me in Korean's hiring.